Welcome to the Sacred Knock Podcast, where the divine speaks and the heart listens. There's a knock, a sacred one. You may not hear it with your ears, but your soul knows it well. I'm your host, Coach Michael Taylor, and I'm inviting you into a sacred space of spiritual awakening, divine insight, and conversations that remind you of who you really are. So, open the door and let your soul receive the wisdom it's been waiting for. Welcome to the Sacred Knock Podcast. Welcome to the Sacred Knock Podcast, where divine wisdom speaks and the heart listens. I'm your host, Coach Michael Taylor, and today we're going to talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough on the spiritual path. And that is the courage it takes to find your own truth about God. So let's be honest. Most people are afraid to ask questions about God. Not because they're lazy, not because they don't care, but because they're scared. Scared of being judged. Scared of getting it wrong. Scared that if they doubt, if they wonder, or if they challenge what they were taught, they might end up on the wrong side of God. And that fear didn't come from God. It came from fear-based theology. From a version of religion that told us to understand that it's dangerous to question, that we should never doubt, that faith means blind obedience, even when something doesn't feel right in our hearts. And so we learn to silence our questions. We learn to suppress our curiosity. We learn to pretend we were sure when deep down, many of us weren't. But here's the truth. Asking questions is not a sign of rebellion. It's a sign of spiritual maturity. It takes courage to ask, is this what I really believe? Does this version of God feel true to me? If God is love, why does this theology make one feel afraid? Those are sacred questions. Those are powerful questions. Those are the kinds of questions that open the door to a deeper relationship with the divine. In my own journey, I had to find the courage to ask those questions. I had to let go of the fear that I'd be punished for thinking differently. I had to unlearn the belief that God would reject me if I strayed outside the lines of organized religion. And do you know what I discovered? God wasn't angry at me for asking. God was waiting for me to ask. Because only when I began to ask did I begin to awaken. Let me say this clearly. If your idea of God makes you afraid to ask questions, it's time to redefine God. Because the divine I've come to know, the God I speak with daily, the God isn't offended by your questions. That God invites them. Why? Because true love never punishes you for seeking the truth. So, if you're listening right now, and if you felt afraid to question what you were taught, this episode is your permission slip. It's time to ask. It's okay to doubt. It's okay to explore. You're not betraying God by asking questions. You're moving closer to God by asking them. Because the moment you start asking, you're no longer following someone else's path. You're walking your own, and that is sacred. So let me leave you with this. What questions have you been too afraid to ask about God? Not because they're wrong, but because you were told you shouldn't ask them. So take a moment, write them down, say them out loud, bring them into the light, because those questions, that's the knock, and this is your invitation to open the door. So, thank you for joining me on this episode of the Sacred Knock Podcast, and if this message spoke to you, I encourage you to subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with someone who's searching too. Remember, God isn't threatened by your questions. God rejoices in your awakening. Until next time, stay curious, stay courageous, and stay sacred. I'll see you next episode. Take care. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Sacred Knock Podcast. We hope this episode has inspired you to listen more closely to the whispers of your soul. If this message moved you, why not share it with someone you love? Because you never know who's waiting to hear their own sacred knock. And if you'd like to dive deeper and download the free ebook, When God Knocks, 5 Divine Reminders to Reignite Your Soul, simply log on to www.knockknockbook.net to download your free gift today. Until next time, stay open, stay tuned in, and always remember, the divine is already within you.